The spoiled gradient refers to the aspects that depend on the idea that you want the image to be more T1 weighted, meaning that it is either spoiled, incoherent, or coherent, related to the concept of wanting the image to be more T1 weighted.
Now, those are the terms like zabud, ingerent, and jahiran, and things like that.
Okay, we will say it next time, but I just want to talk about a small part, and then I will move on to the idea. All right, I will choose the topic to be related to each other. To understand my topic, you will find that even in the initial lectures, I did not continue in a linear order, but rather to make the subject connected to some idea. In the previous part, there are problems and very clear matters. The world is bright. I just want things to be this way. I don't want anything else because I'm not satisfied. When I explain any topic, honestly, I don't follow the order in the books. I feel like things are a bit mixed up. I'm sorry, but I feel like you take a piece from everything. However, I always like things to be connected, so you feel in the end that you understand and the world is bright. They are difficult topics, that's how I feel. So let's start like this, God willing. All right,
Excuse me, Dr. Islam, may I ask you about your opinion on a case? Oh, okay. Well, the topic might be a bit off, but it's about him and her. Is it possible to just...
You explain it lightly. If there's a chance I don't want to, but no, there's no problem, doctor. Here, I can do anything. No, not at all. Let me tell you something. I will commit, as you were saying, by God's will, yes, as we are going normally. For example, now, are there any points you want me to explain? So, I can, God willing, in the next lecture, take 10 to 15 minutes for anything you need. I can record a video and send it to you, no problem at all. Things are easy, but what I will ask is if there is something or a specific point that is not clear, whether in the mirror or in the whole course from beginning to end, send it to me a few days before the lecture, so I can prepare a video and send it at the time of the lecture, or we can take 10 or 15 minutes. The topic is something everyone wants to understand and explain, so I have no problems at all. Doctor, thank you very much. I want to tell you one last thing after we finish the course. If there is something we don't understand, a specific point, or if I hold a question, we can also ask you about it. No, Dr. Islam, you have to pay again.
Ha 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 ha.
Of course, doctor, anytime. Honestly, this topic is very important to me, and I swear it's not commercial at all. Anytime, really, doctor. Thank you very much. I am at your service. Thank you, doctor. May God grant you health and bless you. Thank you very much, really. Thank you very much for you. I hope, God willing, we can benefit from our knowledge. May God accept it. Amen. With God's permission, we will talk about the gradient. Thank God we discussed spin echo and special encoding. We talked about spin echo, special encoding, and the inversion recovery of the sequences we covered last time regarding flare, stare, and fast sat. Thank God, things have become much clearer, and we now understand that the whole story is that I want to create different sequences based on magnetic or different magnetic properties or from another tissue. So I started to play with the sequences as I wanted, and we began to understand and see that the whole topic is quite simple. The topic of image formation or K-space and all that is now finished for us. The special encoding, the X, Y, and Z directions, and what the phase encoding does, and what the frequency encoding does, and the slice selection gradient is fixed with you. It won't change. The topic is simple, but it differs whether you give a saturation pulse or not, or whether you suppress a signal from a tissue and show something else, suppressing a certain property. In the end, if you understand, you will find the topic very enjoyable and easier than easy, God willing. So, the gradient is the story. The whole topic is quite simple. We are currently in the sphere of imaging, discussing the time spent in the examination during the scanning itself, or in the sequence. And I was mentioning that I have at the very beginning. The topic was really simple. We were saying that what I have here is not working. I'm truly, deeply, and sincerely sorry. I might indeed be the one at fault. Please kindly and humbly forgive me, doctor. Well, the topic, in simple and straightforward terms, is that we were saying I have the radio frequency pulse that moves my MZ down completely into the XY plane due to the presence of the radio frequency pulse. We mentioned specifically that this radio frequency pulse has a specific degree, and I can say that it could be 90 degrees or my flip angle. This flip angle controls the change in the magnetic orientation. If you are talking about 90 degrees, that means longitudinal magnetization will drop exactly into my XY plane at precisely 90 degrees. It doesn't make any sense to exceed 90 because in that case, you would go to the other side, which is also at 180 degrees. So in this context, this is considered the maximum for you, or you want to work on it, but you are only going in one direction in this scenario, in this particular case. But, oh, do not go to the English target in the intended goal indeed. We very carefully looked at what he was doing and observed closely and thoroughly. Do you have the RF pulse? Increase it in the XY plane, right? We were saying that we give the initial one, which goes down into the XY plane, and then it starts to return. This return depends on the T1 constant. The fat relaxes faster than water, so its return is quicker than that of water, creating a difference in magnetization or a difference in magnetic force between fat and water. The one with the higher magnetic force gives you a brighter signal than the other. In the gradient echo, when the transversal magnetization in the XY plane goes down to 0, it occurs when the transversal magnetization is affected by a 90-degree RF pulse. What does this mean? It went down in the... So when I gave it, did it become 0? A magnetic field was created in the XY plane as a result of the movement of protons from the ZY direction to the XY direction, which I named transversal magnetization. Transversal magnetization, right? Well, the proton started in transversal magnetization. We said that when the RF pulse is applied, what happens is that all the protons begin to align with each other. They all start to be in phase, meaning they all rotate together and they all undergo precession together, and these protons begin to be present in the XY plane in this way. So we said, the protons present in the XY plane, we mentioned that I have two things. One is called magnetic susceptibility, which is not 100% homogeneous, and there is the magnetic susceptibility effect, which means, for example, there is a certain pathology present in every tissue that has its own specific magnetic property. This magnetic property could be due to the presence of pathology, the presence of a tumor, or, for example, a higher concentration of a certain tissue compared to another, which causes a kind of change in the magnetic field internally within the tissue itself. Okay? So what does this do? This causes the dephasing we talked about earlier, where dephasing occurs and accelerates the dephasing present in the protons. So I want to overcome this. So I apply a 180-degree pulse in the spin echo pulse to refocus and return my protons that have undergone dephasing and perform the refocusing. I start recording my signal after the 180-degree pulse, which is half the echo time, and I begin to record after the second half. So the decay that occurred, which is in MXY, transversal magnetization, you have two curves, one named T2 and another named T2 star. T2 star has a rapid decay from the inhomogeneity effect and magnetic substability, which accelerates the decay process. On the other hand, T2, after applying a 180 pulse, mitigates this effect resulting in an increased value of the magnetic field, or transverse magnetization, as the factors that accelerated its decay have been addressed. Based on this, I was performing a T2 sequence. Now, it was suggested to remove T2 and the 180 pulse, creating a new sequence named the gradient echo sequence. The essence of the gradient is that instead of using this sequence, it will be faster and will help reduce the scan time for patients or sequences. He told you that, as you know, we can use it to calculate and derive T2 star, as well as the gradient effect, or the difference between tissues depending on magnetic stability, which will give you new data or different information. So, as you might expect, the speed of the examination is very important. And having a new difference between the tissues is extremely crucial for you. What is the topic based on? It is based on the fact that instead of giving a flip angle of 90 degrees, you are told to reduce this flip angle and not to use the 180 degrees. So everything I will work on in the gradient is that I have a 90-degree pulse and I will not use 180. Now, when you give a flip angle of, for example, 45 degrees, what does that mean? It means that your magnetization is... When the transformation occurs from the Z direction to the XY plane, it will not drop directly onto the XY plane. Instead, it will drop at a 45-degree angle, as if it loses part of its value or amount of magnetization, dropping into the transversal plane while retaining the other part B. So, at that moment, if you apply the RF pulse, part will drop into the transversal plane and part will remain in MZ. All right? How does this benefit us in a simple way? I will show you. Here, if I use a flip angle of 90 degrees and here a flip angle of 45 degrees, let's go to the flip angle of 90 degrees. This will drop down to the XY plane. What will happen? After 1,000, after it drops down, what will happen? Recovery will occur after the RF pulse stops and relaxation will take place, right? Because it drops to 90 degrees, it takes a certain amount of time or a long time to achieve total recovery, correct? Is the time it takes for recovery or the recovery of longitudinal magnetization with a 90-degree pulse less than, equal to, or more than if I used a 45-degree pulse? It will definitely be more, right? So when you give a 90-degree pulse, since all the amount of longitudinal magnetization has dropped in this case, to return and achieve total recovery, you need a long time to return to MZ. But if you give a 45-degree pulse, it hasn't all dropped. It's still close to Z. So to achieve total recovery and return, it will take less time. This shorter time will benefit you in that. It is highly beneficial for you to present your scan time in a more detailed manner instead of waiting for a certain amount or a specific time for the difference in tissues between the T1 constant to occur before the second RF pulse starts. Here, your TR is large, but what happens with a 45-degree flip angle? It quickly returns to maximum, allowing you to give a second RF pulse. So it's as if you can achieve 2 echoes with a lower flip angle, which ultimately shortens your scan time because you are using a shorter TR. You can immediately give another RF pulse, which speeds up your design time. This is an advantage in the gradient. But when it comes here, With a large flip angle, you need enough time to measure MZ for it to recover properly and provide an image based on the T-weight difference. However, if you are using a small flip angle, the T1 weighted imaging is based on the high magnetization value close to Z, which results in a strong signal dependent on T1. This is when you are talking about T1 weighted image, but at the same time, T1 weighted means it relies on the difference in tissues in the T1 constant. So, T1 weighted means it depends on the difference in tissues in its T1 constant. So, the gradient echo with a small flip angle is number 1, with a short TR and a short scan time. Let's see. The gradient echo rule gives a 90-degree pulse, along with slice selection gradient and phasing coding gradient, similar to what we discussed earlier. However, during the signal recording, we mentioned that during the readout of the signal, you apply frequency encoding. It was said that before frequency encoding, you apply a negative gradient. The function of the negative gradient is to create dephasing of the protons. You remember the topic where we were applying negative frequency before the 180-degree pulse present in the spin echo. Its function is to create dephasing of the protons, and you multiply by 180, it's as if you did complete defacing. You come and give the 180. What are you going to do? Refocusing or refacing again. If you have reached maximum defacing, when you come to refacing it, you are strengthening your signal. The same idea here is the negative gradient that you are going to give it. It will defacing these protons as if you are reaching the maximum difference between them. After that, you will apply the frequency encoding gradient. That's it. Frequency include ingredient. Its length or softness is considered a double negative gradient, which you are extending because this will create a dephase. You need half of this gradient to create a rephase. So, in this area, you will read your signal. This is the center area that has the highest readout. The idea is that the gradient is like 180 degrees with a 180-degree pulse. You are doing a flip-flop, meaning you are returning the summary is just about how it works and does not diminish the effect of anything. For you, it will just strengthen your signal. So, if you are giving it, then you proceed to apply the frequency encoding gradient as we mentioned, with different degrees depending on the case baselines you have. Then you provide frequency encoding gradient to read out your signal. So now I have the gradient echo, and you can create an image. This image can be a T1 weighted image, a proton density weighted image, or a T2 star weighted image. The proton density weighted image can be a T2 weighted image. Is it possible to have a T2 weighted image? No, they said it's not possible. Why? I said you don't have the 180-degree pulse here. You removed it from the sequence. You removed it from the calculations. So when we came to talk, they said if you want to get a T1 weighted image, you should choose a large angle above 50 degrees for the large flip angle. So why a large flip angle? They asked you to choose. Why? This is an important question. Why? If I want an image based on the difference in the T1 weighted image, should I choose a large flip angle instead of a small flip angle? This is a point that has an explanation. And it is said that you are a team. Yes, why should I use a large flip angle instead of a small flip angle? More than 50, that's the topic. I'm working under 90. Fine, above 50. You want a T1 weighted image. Below 50, you want a T2 star or proton density image. So, the difference in the signal you receive depends either on proton density or T2 star. In case you want a T1 image, you need a flip angle over 50. All right? Then, the gradient, just to clarify, can allow you to create a T1 weighted, T2 star weighted, or proton density weighted image. The commercial names for these are the commercial names that are available. The FAST, field echo, including the one that Dr. Islam was talking about, has a spoiled gradient that we will discuss next time. The fast low angle shot, all of this is related to the commercial names of the subject. Of course, the gradient is considered a fast sequence, so you can use it if you are the patient who is writing himself and want to take a sequence, with breath hold imaging or 3D volume. Scanning, meaning in the angle. We are still with the question we mentioned a little while ago. Why am I using this? I just want to show you the image of why I would use it if I want an image based on Does anyone have an answer? He should be more available for the group. He should have more time to return. What does it mean that he should have more time to return? He should be more available for the group. He should have more time to return. What does it mean that he should have more time to return? What does it mean that he should have more time to return? What does it mean that he should have more time to return? Okay, will you come back again? The fat here is large, or your flip angle is large, but I also want to clarify something. If I remember the topic of fat and water, which one returns faster? Fat is nice. If today I have a small flip angle, where will the fat and water be, doctors? They will be here, right? Both together here, right? Or the RF pulse exchange. Do you think with the small flip angle and short repetition time, you will be able to observe a clear difference in the T1 constant between what you can achieve? You can obtain a clear difference in the T1 constant, and they are close to the Z direction. So imagine with me that both will drop. For example, 30 degrees. Have you noticed that your sequence is actually small? Are the fat and water both? You should pay attention to your sequence, as it is quite small. Are both of them? Are both of? Will there be a difference in the signal with the short flip angle? No, there cannot be. There will be a difference. I won't tell you what it doesn't have, because the opening will become faster. It won't be there, because the girl will be faster. But because you are using a small flip angle, the signal strength of water and the signal strength of fat are both present. You want to do what? You want to increase the flip angle a bit. When you increase the flip angle a bit, the water signal decreases and is delayed, while the fat signal returns quickly, increasing the difference. Thus, the strength of the magnetic field, or the magnetization of fat, becomes higher, giving you a stronger signal, which increases the difference between it and water, because the water will be delayed. In this case, you have created a clearer image for the doctors. I use a large flip angle for proton density because I used a smaller angle for T2 star. Simply put, you want to reduce your reliance on T1. How do you reduce your reliance on T1? By reducing the angle. When you reduce the angle, you make the difference dependent on other properties, besides the T1 constant, which will be either proton density or T2 star. This brings us to your adjustments for the repetition time and echo time. In proton density imaging, a short TR, repetition time, and a short echo time are used because the sequence itself is short in the case of T2 star imaging. If you want the image to be based on T2 star, you should keep your repetition time short, but your echo time should be relatively shorter compared to proton density imaging. Why is this important? Because we know that echo time is a significant factor in T2. If you make it long, the difference between the tissues will increase with a long echo time, making the image here mainly weighted on T2. All right, let's take a closer look. If you are working at 90 degrees, then the longitudinal magnetization here will be 0. If you are working at 30 degrees, the longitudinal magnetization here will not be 0. It will be 87%. Just a second. Everyone, I'm sorry. Please bear with me. Here is the importance of the value of change or the value in the flip angle. This is significant. Of course, the value of change or the value in the flip angle. It's very important in the end to express to you that if you increase the flip angle, then your MXY value is high and your M's value is low. But what if you decrease the flip angle